Okay. I don't know how a traditional podcast is done, so we're just going to be doing it this way by recording and just uploading it later. Aren't podcasts done?
Podcast is like... go ahead.
Technically, he said that this podcast project, you can just record something. You don't have to make it live, but aren't they traditionally live?
Not really, no.
No?
They're recorded and uploaded.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, well...
Yeah, it's like a TV show that gets aired.
Yeah. So this
Maybe it has slight editing, but...
Yeah. Bad intro, outro, music, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right, so this is
MBM BAM. Product placement in your podcast, MBM BAM.
Trying to speak it. This is my technically former roommate, Gabe, and Kirsten. I don't know how she wants me to refer her to because I don't know what she wants me to tell her. This is my...
Hello.
Okay, so the subject of the podcast that I wanted to do is just kind of talking about, writing. I have a couple of discussion prompts here for us to look at. Just the subject will be basically discussing writing and what you believe is considered good and bad writing. I'm trying to incorporate a lot of my projects to this topic. I literally have it listed in numbered bulletins. Number 1, introduce myself and guests. Check.
Wonderfully organized.
So, do either of you have any interest in writing, whether it be just wanting to be a writer or as an enthusiast?
I don't mind writing. Like, I can do it on occasion. It's not exactly a hobby that I'd fulfill. So, it's fun on the side, yeah.
Alright, what about you, Kirsten?
I have a weird relationship with writing. I wouldn't write my own, stories or anything as, a hobby, but I'm okay at it if I wanted to do it. So, I usually do it for assignments and all those things where I'm kind of forced to write. But, yeah, I wouldn't, go and spend my free time writing a story or something.
That's about the kind of boat that I'm in. Although, at some point, I should probably indulge in actually writing.
Yeah, I do writing literally all the time.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, of course you know. You're my roommate. You're aware of all of these things.
Yes.
Like a spy. A fly on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so, when you think of writing, what's the first thing that you think of? Do you think of books, or, what type of literature do you think of when you first hear about writing?
Maybe it's because of where I'm at, but the second you say writing, my brain goes, oh no, another research paper.
Okay, so that's what you think of then.
Yeah.
I definitely don't really think of writing in a way of a certain subject. I see it as a method, and then there are different ways you can do it. So I guess it all depends on the context of the conversation.
Right. Alright, that makes sense. Let's see. Do you prefer fiction or non-fiction when it comes to writing?
I prefer fiction. I like to write fiction, if I ever do write. So I can do non-fiction, but it's always boring.
It is, kinda. Because it's like, hey, this event happened. Now write it exactly as it happened, or else.
Yeah. I mean, it's a necessity, so, I understand it, but,
I made for another assignment in another class, no, not another class, in the same class, I made a website that talked about writing in general, and it was mostly about fiction writing, because I don't like writing non-fiction. That requires studying. I didn't choose this career to study.
What
about you, Kirsten? Fiction or non-fiction?
In terms of reading, I'd much rather read nonfiction. In terms of writing, I mostly do. Or wait, no, I would rather read fiction, the fantasy writing. But I usually end up writing nonfiction because I do a lot of like articles and things like that.
Oh. Yeah, most people prefer.
Don't really do much fantasy writing.
Most people seem to prefer fiction, which is good. It works for me.
Yes.
Let's see. Do you have like a specific favorite piece of fiction? Doesn't have to be like. It doesn't have to be like something specific. It could be a book or a TV show or a movie, literally whatever. Just it doesn't have to be your favorite either. Just something that comes to mind when you think of a good fictional story. And don't say Harry. Don't. I was gonna say don't say Harry Potter. Everybody says Harry Potter.
Yeah, everyone says Harry Potter. The book's
Everybody
not bad.
says Harry Potter and Hunger Games.
See, my like follow-up to it was this book.
No. There is a new Hunger Games book coming out, and a new Twilight.
Why?
We're just
Because-
back in the early 2000s,
Because
huh?
they're cash grabbing on what was popular 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's capitalism, baby.
The second one that I was gonna say was oh gosh, what's it called? It was called The Host, and it was by the same artist, the same author that wrote Twilight, but I liked that book more. It was basically about like in the future, aliens come down and like start stealing people's bodies, but they actually like take better care of the planet and all that stuff. But of course, the author of Twilight is like, the alien falls in love with a human and then realizes we shouldn't be taking over the planet.
That's... yeah.
It's still really good, but like,
When it comes to writing relationships, I like to write it organically. Like, I'll create my characters, and if it turns out that two of them have chemistry, then I'll put them together. I don't want to write them specifically to be together, because then they're not going to have chemistry. It's like when you're a child and you're holding your dolls and you're forcing them to kiss because you're a sadistic little freak. Because then you see Toy Story and you realize you've been scarring those toys for life. But yeah, like, I don't like writing a story already knowing who I want to have together, because then I'm going to write these characters and they're not going to have any chemistry, but I'm still going to have them be together because that's what I decided. I prefer organic writing over anything else.
Right. I guess for my stories, they're I don't know. I have a couple that I can think of. Well, when it comes to anime, JoJo's, I think, is like one of the best stories that I've seen.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, right?
Hell yeah, it's a great story. I recommend that. But well, no, there might be some to replace that. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, whatever. When it comes to like novelizations, though, the Abhorsen trilogy from Garth Nix is really good.
Oh.
Abhorsen, it's like ABHORSEN.
Yeah, a book.
That's actually where I got my username from.
A book that. Oh, really?
Yeah, the first book was called Sabriel.
I go to start talking, and then I realize what you said. I'm like, wait, back up. Ditch the thought for a minute. We need to address this.
Yeah. Also, did you know that the first Twilight book came out in October 5th, 2005?
Did you know?
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, that was like 15 years ago.
Also, Half-Blood Prince came out in July of that year.
Oh yeah, I forgot that when they were making the Harry Potter movies, that they were still writing the books. Well, she was still writing the books, not they. But still.
Yeah. I did like how she kind of like, as you read the books, kind of they changed because she adapted that her audience was also getting older.
Yeah, because like the whole vibe of it. You can even tell in the movies too that the whole vibe of it started changing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the directors changed, but like the stories also got darker and with bigger stakes. It started off as like a childhood, kind of dark fantasy story into this really depressing story about wizards killing each other.
Yeah, no, see, hot take. Sorcerer's Stone is the only book J.K. Rowling wrote. The others just have her name to them.
What?
That's my hot take. I mean, Chamber of Secrets is so vastly different from Sorcerer's Stone in its writing style and story. And like,
is
it's still good,
is this
but
just your
they
theory?
keep progressively changing.
Is this just your
No,
theory?
that's my headcanon.
That's your headcanon? Okay. Let's see. What do you guys think counts as bad writing? Like when you're watching a movie or you're reading a book, are there certain moments that you look at and you think, "Wow, that's bad writing"?
Yes, actually, I do have moments like that, and a great example is two words: cool and cat.
Cool cat?
Cool cat.
I'll have to put
Probably the worst writing I've seen in anything in a while.
I've heard of Cool Cat. I don't remember what it is.
It's just some weird middle-aged boomers, like, children's story.
Can you tell me what specifically was so bad about it?
Okay, well, you know what Cool Cat is, right? It's that orange cat. He's so cool and bombastic, and he has a whole movie.
No.
Cool Cat saves the kids. And
Oh.
now they're coming out and stops the school shooting.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's the next one. Cool Cat stops a school shooting.
Okay. Oh, that
Yeah.
guy. Okay.
Alright, but all jokes aside, something that I feel like is a really key case of bad writing is 13 Reasons Why.
Ooh, that's a good one, yeah. A good one for topic, not good one, not... Moving on. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's rife with just misunderstandings of teen culture and also a complete lack of awareness of what they're doing. So the writing, in a way, glorifies suicide and glorifies bullying because, oh, that's okay. If you get bullied, you can just make a bunch of cassette tapes and have your closest friend go on an emotional journey.
Yeah. I personally, when I watched that, I didn't like the way many of the characters were portrayed, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they were stereotypes of themselves with not that much depth to them. There were some moments, but otherwise it just felt like a bunch of adult men writing about teenagers, and that's just not right.
That's pretty much how most things like that go. I mean, season 2 and 3 get even worse.
I've only seen season 2. I stopped watching after that.
Oh, you've only seen season 2?
No, I've seen season 1 and 2, but I stopped watching after that.
Oh, okay. Alright, yeah, season 3 is, who's the big jock bully from season 1 and 2? The guy who caused everything?
Bryce Walker.
Yeah, well, season 3 glorifies him, they try to make him a hero.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so they give him, like, a redemption arc in how, actually, his whole life, his grandfather is racist, and his mom doesn't care about him, so that's why he bullies kids.
Yeah.
Guess that makes it okay.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
that whole show is
okay.
just a really messy situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's the writing assumes this weird world where none of this actually happens.
Yeah, I think
in the way that it describes, at least. Not that, you know.
yeah, for me,
they describe it in a way that's like not of this world. It's odd.
Yeah, for me, it comes back to organic writing, which is when you create a world and you put these characters in it and you come up with the world's history, at that point you have to let it play out on its own. You cannot and should not ever force something to happen because it's going to feel completely unnatural. People will be saying, this wouldn't happen in the world that you've established. You know, it's like that's why
you explicitly designed the world to have what you want to happen, like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, because like in that point, it's like, oh, it makes sense because this would happen in the world. But it's a lot harder for stories that take place in our world. There's certain rules you have to follow. You have to understand the scenario that you're creating, It's like you write a story and you have this plan for how you want it to end, and you're going to stick to it stubbornly. The problem is that at this point, everything you've written completely goes in a different direction, so you have to force something to happen. It results itself as unnecessary drama and tension that really has no place and comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, totally.
It's like people wouldn't say this, people wouldn't do this wouldn't happen. And it makes it so unbearable for people to look at.
Yeah, that's like what that play Good Kids at the campus had.
Yeah, let's not talk about that one here.
Yeah, let's not.
Let's not talk about that. Yeah, let's just not. Moving on. So how do you guys feel about cliches being used in stories? Do you think there's a good or bad place for them?
I think it depends on what you're using them for. If it's because you've got your main character is a total cliche, then maybe not. But like if you just need a couple side characters and you're like, yeah, okay. You want them to be very two-dimensional. Like, I guess are you okay with your characters not being fully fleshed out? Like, if you're gonna go with a cliche, you're gonna instantly have just a two-dimensional character with no character traits.
It can also refer to moments and lines too, because like, I'm a stern believer that certain lines that become cliches can be used just because it might be kind of hard to come up with original dialogue after you write for so long. But like for example, stuff like I have a bad feeling about this, and when you're trying to get away from a killer and you start tripping over everything. Oh no, a pebble! Plonk! Oh no, a piece of grass! Plonk!
Yeah,
I will say, like,
they go to open their car door and they just can't fit the keys in. But it's like, who
it's like, you've done this a million times, why are you now struggling?
I will say that my two, like, favorite cliches are the one where it's like, oh, it can't get any worse, can it? And then it just gets so much worse.
So irony, basically.
And then, yeah, that one, and then the one where it's very, like, a cliche, because we're like, no, absolutely not happening, I'm not doing it. And then, like, the next scene, it jump cuts to them doing the exact same thing that they said they wouldn't be doing.
Yeah, so, like,
I don't know why those two things always make me laugh. It doesn't
for
matter.
specific people, certain cliches can still be fun. So the whole point of the question is just wondering if using a cliche is always a bad thing, or can it be a good thing?
It can be a good thing. It just depends on how you use it.
Yeah, exactly. It can totally be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although most of the times you have to work to make it good, because most of the time it's automatically bad.
A lot of people they look at cliches as like what worked, and they just fill their piece of literature with it, and it's just like cookie cutter cliches that if you tape it together and make a story, it's ridiculous.
Right.
I want to diverge from my list here and talk about something in literature that really ticks me off. When it comes to writing books and movies and stuff, what I hate is when they make the sequel and it's an identical plot to the original, just with a couple of things mixed around.
Oh, yeah. Look at my head going, okay, what does that mean?
When it's like, because it's like, what, you're just gonna say like all the character development in the last one just meant nothing because you want to just repeat what worked?
Yeah.
Like, it's what I call money grabbing writing. Or money writing. When you write specifically... It's like you write specifically you tailor what you're writing toward what capitalism finds most popular and most profitable. Which leads to a lot of bad writing, but it's something that will lure people in. Unfortunately, by the time that they are in, they've already got your money. For example, live-action Disney movies, and sequels to movies that you liked. But it turns out the sequels are not very good, but we still bank off of it because it's what's popular.
Disney sequel curse.
Yeah.
Speaking of Disney sequels, like the one I know that really confused me. So, if you guys ever watched like The Little Mermaid, so you've got there's three now, right? There's the original, then
The sequel and the
Sea,
prequel,
which is
yeah.
like about Melody, and then there's Ariel's beginning, the prequel. But like if you watch the prequel and then the actual Little Mermaid, King Triton learned like nothing. Because it's literally his daughter almost dies in both movies because he was too stubborn to be like, maybe I should listen to her opinion. Like,
By the end of the prequel,
like,
by the end of the prequel, he's like, I'll listen to your opinion. In the next movie, your opinion means nothing. Like, Dad.
Yeah, like, granted it is two different things. It's like her opinion on music versus her opinion on dating somebody that is historically killed.
But you think that
so,
her
like,
almost
I
dying.
get it, but I'm like, but at both times she basically like went against you anyways, and then like almost died in the process.
Like, did we learn nothing?
And then, like, at least in the third movie, the one that learns the lesson in Triton, it's like Ariel doing her dad's mistakes, so it's kind of interesting to see that, because she's the one being like, nope, Melody can't go to the sea. And then Melody defies her, so it's like, it's just the same thing, but it's Ariel's learning the lesson instead of Triton.
It's kind of like putting Ariel in Triton's shoes. Or fins. Putting Ariel in Triton's fins.
Yeah, but in the second one, like, she was able to be on land, and she didn't want her daughter to go to the ocean.
Yeah, that was the scenario, because like her daughter was born human, not mermaid.
Right. AKA the sequel where they just do the Little Mermaid 1, but reverse it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. It's like there's a little bit of originality to it, but overall it is basically the same thing.
Yeah, the only thing I was happy about is that Triton had actually learned his lesson.
Now, I feel like that movie is a little bit of a special case, because one of the biggest drawbacks of doing that kind of sequel is that none of the characters have learned anything. In this case, they still technically retain their development, but the overall plot is still structured the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that bugs me, is plot structure. Like, many TV shows, especially kids shows, follow a specific structure for every episode, making them so predictable and boring.
That's cool. Well, it actually dates back to, in like theater history, to like not the Renaissance, not the I can't remember the era, but there is actually a term called the well-made play, in which it follows the same act structure with the same climax moments, the same writing, and that's just how it was done.
Yeah, like, I am a big fan of the DC superhero TV shows.
And they have the most predictable writing in the
world. They can, yeah. Like, their long-term plots are fine. Their long-term plots for things are fine, and they're interesting, and I just wish they would spend more time focusing on that. But
those long-term plots can be predicted easily in like
maybe,
the next few episodes.
But if they were to condense it down to just the long-term plot, yeah, we'd have shorter seasons, but at least it would be more interesting. But in order to pad out the filler time, they use all of these repeatable episodes where the I can describe the plot structure for you if you want me to.
Go
so it's like
90% of shows.
Like, episode opens. The superhero, everybody's given their side plots for that day. Superhero goes up against a supervillain and fails to capture them the first time because they didn't see them coming. Then we go to the next scene where we research more about this supervillain, and then we have some drama in between. We meet the villain again and lose them again, and then we have some more drama, and then we have an inspirational moment right before we go to stop the villain one last time and finally catch them, and then we have some more drama resolution, and then we set up for the next episode. Season 5 of...
A lot of DC, they try to tie things into, like, the story, and that's where my problem with the DC shows come in, is that they refuse to admit that they're doing Monster of the Week episodes.
They are!
So they try to hide it in, like, thinly veiled plot progression.
Because like,
so it just feels off.
because like, okay, season one of The Flash, this big machine explodes and it gives people superpowers, and most of the season is spent, you know, finding these new metahumans and discovering their powers. In that season, I'll give them a pass because it's the first season and we're being introduced to this new world. Fine.
Absolutely.
Season 2, we come up with these new people who got powers, and we follow that same structure. Season 3, same thing. Season 4, same thing. Season 5, well, Season 5 didn't quite do that, but still. It drives me kind of crazy how they just keep doing it.
Is that they do the same thing as Season 1, except they pretend that they're doing an overarching plot with all their other shows.
Yeah, because, like, okay.
That's where the problem comes in. Like, so take Buffy, for example. Like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Joss Whedon. Really great series, yet it relies heavily on the Monster of the Week format. And how there's always one episode of each week in which there's just a monster, a random enemy. Maybe that's the only episode at all.
It's why I
However,
prefer...
that show doesn't pretend that it's progressing the plot through a Monster of the Week. It has to be a very specific instance in which they go, this is where we progress the plot.
Yeah.
DC, they just decide to be like, oh, you know that random metahuman that was just some completely random encounter? Well, they're actually very important to the plot, and you should have paid attention.
Pretty much, yeah. Kirsten, do you have any examples of where something like that would apply?
I don't know. My brain just kind of goes to, like, most... Like, I don't know. When you were doing that description, like, you know, that description works for, like, House, like, and medical shows, and, like, all those things. Like, those any TV drama. Like Chicago Med has the exact same thing, where it's, like, obviously that there's a case, and then there's drama about trying to figure out what they have, and it's all resolved neatly by the end of the episode. But then there's, like, do you remember how this person and this person were in a relationship? Yeah, they're fighting now, and this is why, and it's all around, like, and it just slowly progresses.
And that's where the forced writing comes in, is that in drama shows like that, in order to fill that drama quota, like, certain characters have to have arguments or things like that have to happen, and you know in reality that it wouldn't go down like that. Like, what bugs me so much is there will be a dramatic scene where people are arguing, and then one character, just one of them, will storm out of the room and the scene ends. Like, no, come back here, let's keep having this discussion and work it out. Like, I feel like there's more we can talk about here, but no, you're just gonna storm out of the room and end the scene. Like, do we have to drag on this drama? We know how it's gonna end.
That's how plays are done, dude. That's actually how a lot of old plays were done.
I know, but that's...
Take, for example, the play Tartuffe, which is like a French comedy. Each scene ends when someone either enters or leaves the room. It's a new scene in the play whenever there's a character that entered or left.
Yeah, but they always have, like, in drama shows, they always have to end on a dramatic note. Like, I'm so mad at you, and this is why. Storms out. And I'm just like, shouldn't you come back so we can talk about this? Okay, I guess I'll see you in, like, 2 scenes.
That's how that works.
It's why I prefer organic writing, because, like, you're going with what you think would naturally happen in the moment, regardless of anything else. Like, oh, I like this character, and I like this character. I kind of want them together, but they have no chemistry, so I shouldn't put them together. That kind of thing.
Well, that would really well for, like, fan fiction or some form of currently airing TV show that has, like, a undecided future. When it comes to plays, it's incredibly necessary to, no matter what happens, is to always make it go to wherever you need to go. Which is why characters leave sometimes when they shouldn't, characters talk to themselves when they normally shouldn't.
Yeah. When I eventually start becoming a published writer, I want my writing to go off of the organic method. If I write a series, I want to go with what I think will naturally happen. I can have an idea of where I want it to go, absolutely, and that can help guide me in that direction. But if I come to a point where I think something will naturally happen this way, I should let it happen that way and not force it to do something else.
Yeah.
Like, just let things develop. It's like, I describe this on my website this way. It's like when you're planting something. You have the seed. You know exactly what kind of seed it is. You know what kind of dirt you're going to plant it in. You know how much water you're going to add. And you know where you're going to put it. At that point, though, once it grows, it's going to grow in its own way. And you're just going to have to let it. You can tailor it a little bit, but mostly it's just going to grow the way it's going to grow, and you can't really stop it.
Right.
And that's how I try to think of writing. I'm going to set up everything, and I might guide it, but it's going to grow the way it's going to grow, and it's going to develop the way it's going to, and there's not really much I can or should do about it.
What if it goes in a way that you don't want it to go?
That's a good point. If it goes in a way I want to go, I can try to nudge it in a certain direction, but I have to keep it within the confines of reality so that it's believable.
Right. So is it truly fully organic if you're able to always fiddle with it, steer it in the direction that you want?
I guess that's the question, yeah. So I guess you can consider it partial organic writing and not fully organic. Because there is a direction you want to go, but there's an art to letting things naturally develop instead of forcing development, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The story is alive, you kind of let it flow to where you need it to go, but sometimes that story goes where it should not go, and you kind of have to steer it around.
That's where we come to retconning, where you change when you change previously established lore to fit the future. It's like you've already established certain lore, but now you're retconning it to change it. Now, retcons can be for good or bad, but it usually depends.
Yeah, it completely depends on the situation that retconning is done in. So, I mean, like...
For example, X-Men. The X-Men movies. They literally made an...
not seen any of them.
Yeah, okay, so...
I've seen, like, the first three when I was, like...
Yeah, there were 3 original X-Men movies. The first one everybody liked. The second one, it was okay, and a lot of people did not like the third one. So eventually, they came out with an X-Men movie that was about time travel. That was basically the whole purpose of it was to retcon the bad movies.
So are we doing, are you talking about, like, the new X-Men movies or, like, the original?
Just all of them. Talking about all of them.
Yeah, but, like, the ones with the young Xavier, or even, like, you're talking, like, Patrick Stewart Xavier?
The original 3 movies I'm talking about are the ones with old Xavier.
Oh, okay.
The Days of Future Past was...
trilogy, and then there's the one where they're all in university and growing up, and then there's the one where Magneto is really old, and then there's the one where they're like Logan. There's
so much. So Logan was the best one, admittedly. Come on.
I don't know, I like Deadpool.
Okay, well, that's fair. Deadpool kind of followed Deadpool's story was overall cliche, but I think it was supposed to because the whole point was fourth wall breaking.
Yeah, Deadpool is a cliche comic book character. That's his whole deal. He embodies comic book tropes.
Pretty much. So
I saw this video that was like, because you know how like at the beginning there's the credits and all of the like everybody has a name, like the writers are called true heroes and stuff like that. Apparently, like there's a theory that's like, oh, the movie was actually written by Deadpool. Kind of like when you play the Deadpool video games, Deadpool's writing his own game as he goes.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, it's in the opening credits of Deadpool, like he's not naming any of the producers. He's literally just saying, like making fun of them, like some jerk, the guy who wrote Twilight or something.
Yeah. And then the only one that he actually compliments is
Ryan
the
Reynolds.
writer.
Oh, and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, and like there's an actual clip from the comic books where, like, it's like actually in the books where there's a point where somebody says, "What do you sound like Deadpool?" in like an interview, and he's like, "Kind of like Ryan Reynolds."
God.
That's pretty great.
I think that was a thing established like really far back. Well, not really far, like that old. Like, it far enough back that he was like actually named like Deadpool, the character. Like, I sound like this. That's the movie if ever gets cast as a movie. So it was kind of this video I was watching was like, I think that Deadpool wrote his own movie, just like he wrote his own video game and like all these things, because there's things that don't make sense in Deadpool because they're cliche, but it's Deadpool had such a sad history that in the end he ends up saving the girl from this glass box. Like, really, she should have died. It doesn't matter if she's in some glass box. A glass box is going to shatter.
Yeah, no, she's dead.
But in his version of the story, in his version of the story, he gets to be the hero and he gets this redemption arc. It's like, it's only stuff that makes sense if you're going through your own history and going, I didn't like how that ended, I'm going to change it so that it's actually a happy ending and I get to be the hero.
Okay, I also have a cat with me.
Nice.
His name is Gary Moss. Hi, Gary. He's not as snuggly as Gretel, Gabe's cat.
No. You've told me before.
Gabe's cat. Gretel is the most snuggly cat I've ever met, and I miss her so much.
Yeah, she's snuggly.
That's the downside of no longer being roommates, is that I don't get to see Gretel anymore.
Yeah.
Ignore the fact that you don't get to see Gabe anymore. You just care about seeing Gretel.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, you too, Gabe, obviously. Miss your man, whatever.
Of course.
Alright, I want to move on to writing perspectives. So you guys know what, like, first person, third person perspectives are, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I did a poll about this in a group chat that I have, and a lot of people said first person that was their favorite. Which one do you guys prefer?
Yeah.
I can be persuaded either way.
Yeah, I want to also include, because there's three perspectives. There's first, second, and third perspective. Do you guys know what each of them are?
I don't know what second perspective is.
Third is he and a name, and second is you.
Yeah, I pulled up the website that I made for reference. Second person's perspective. It's like the narrator speaking directly to you. It's like they're saying, like, you did this, you did that, you sat and you walked this way. It's like they're telling you what happened.
So the reader, the reader beware from Goosebumps series.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but it's
Gotcha.
like you're the main character and the narrator is telling you what happened.
Right.
Yes. Okay, I know what that is.
Like the narrator is saying, Jonathan went to the store last night.
No, that's third person. Second person would be you went to the store last night.
I was saying third person is
Oh,
the
okay.
narrator talking
I was
to
confused.
someone else.
I was very confused. Gary is just sitting in the corner staring at me. Alright, so do you guys prefer first, second, or third perspective when you're reading?
I do not like second, and I can be persuaded to enjoy first.
I can read...
I could be persuaded anyway. However, I will say that when I read, like, now that I know what second perspective is, when I've read a horror story, if it's like a book, like how Goosebumps in normal books is like, oh, this is the story of what happened to somebody else. I found it much scarier when it was like, what are you doing? And it was described as you, rather than like, Sally decided to go to the dark haunted clown maze. I don't know.
The Dark Haunted Clown Maze, coming soon to a theater near you.
I prefer second person when it comes to like RPGs. So like if I'm playing an RPG,
Yeah, that makes
I really
sense.
like second person because I like enjoying the story talking to me as the participant of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like reading a book, reading anything else, second person just feels.
Yeah. When it comes to reading, I can do either first or third person. But when it comes to writing, I prefer writing in third person, and there's a specific reason for this, which I wrote down. So yeah, third person is the perspective that's separate from any of the characters, including yourself. And it's the reason that I like it so much is because with third person, you can follow other people to other places that your main character is not present in. Like when it's when you have, because yes, first person gives you a greater insight to the main character and how he thinks, and there's no greater way to get personally invested in a main character than in first person. However, with third person, you can explore other characters and their thoughts, and you can explore other areas of the world without having to be limited to just the perspective of one character. Like,
I mean,
if I
you want to do what Stephanie Meyer did in, like, the Twilight books, where just certain chapters switched who the main character was.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys
I
read
don't.
those or not.
I really hate when people do. I hate when people write in first person and then just switch perspectives to different people. It gets really confusing for me.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, there's the one book. I feel like it was probably the fourth book. I might be getting that wrong, though. But she's wanting to switch to seeing what the wolves are doing while the vampires are taking care of Bella. And so they're like, oh, she's kind of stuck with, well, I only have Bella's perspective, what do I do? So then it just, like, for a good, so the fourth book is actually divided into 3 separate books. So the first book is Bella, second book is Jacob, and the third book is Bella again. So there's, like, technically 6 books, because there's 3 books.
And, like,
3 base books in the
you
fourth book.
can avoid all of that trouble by going to third person.
Yeah.
In third person, you're just.
Not really. You can't avoid it by going third person. I mean, look
I don't
at
know, not immediately transferring to third person. By that point, you've already established your writing style for that book. I mean, like, when you're writing in third person, you don't necessarily, you're not restricted to the main character. You can follow them most of the time, yes, because they're the driving force of the plot. But you're allowed to follow another character into a different scenario. You're allowed to just talk about the world that exists. And it makes sense because you're not just the main character. You can go everywhere.
Yeah.
True.
You're not limited like first and second person, which are limited. Because, like, regardless of how you spin it, in third person you don't have to follow a character. You can just explore the world. But in first and second person, you're restricted solely to a character and their interpretation of the world.
Well, using to have a bunch of other characters in third person being, like, looked at, because, like, if you have one character who's the obvious main character, and then you can it makes you wonder, like, what's this about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 meters, whatever that is.
Alright, how many more questions do I have written here? Like 2 more. Okay, so I really hope that the audio doesn't pick them up too bad. So,
Well, if it does, just let us know and we can do this part.
It just annoys me so much. So, what do you think that a story will be like in 200 years? Like, how will writing evolve by that point?
Ooh.
That's a good one. I think it's impossible to tell at this point. I feel like writing will become more useful because of, like, the lack. Well, I mean, with the virus, I mean, who knows if we'll even be able to be in person more often already. like this virus may never go away and only be like a monthly or half a year vaccine, just like the flu. So I mean, who knows where writing will be in 200 years? That's a pretty long time, and I got no idea.
I feel like it's going to be online.
Yeah, that's a good, assessment of it.
Yeah, because like we've got all these ebooks now, so it's like, plus that saving on paper. I mean, save the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, save the tree.
We didn't plant 2 billion trees for you to turn them into paper.
Yeah, like I think that would be like kind of one thing that we'd see is that it's just the medium changes. I don't know, because everybody's constantly like changing stories and like pressing the molds and trying, but they're always changing things. So your stereotypes, I think, are always going to stay there. They might evolve in some way, but for the most part, I think most things will try and stay the same. Because, like, if you look back, it's hard to say, because, like, you look back and you go to, like, Back to the Future, and they're like, you know what, in 2020, we're going to have hoverboards, and, like, everybody's going to be wearing super puffy jackets, and, like, basically 90s fashion on steroids, like, is what the 2020s are going to look like, because they couldn't think beyond, what they currently had.
Some good stuff. I better write this down.
Like even if you look at there's like old drawings from like invention expos way back in like the early 90s or maybe like the 1800s, but they still were using carriages and stuff. They, instead of thinking of like, let's make a horseless carriage, aka a car, they were like, no, we're gonna make mechanical horses to pull the carriages.
Because that's a more plausible idea.
Yeah, but that's like they're like, oh, carriages have to have a horse. So instead of having a real horse, we can use mechanical horses. Because that's when like that was the big thing that they're like, oh, in 200 years we're gonna be using mechanical horses.
Like how in the 1980s we thought we were gonna have flying cars.
Get rid of the horse, and the carriage can self-propel itself, and then.
Kind of like how in the 1980s we thought we were gonna have flying cars in 2015, and we ended up just having stupid hoverboard things that don't actually hover.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Back to the Future too.
Basically, yeah.
Mega Man and their 19X.
Yeah, it's funny how a lot of movies and in-your-face media influence what we think the future is gonna be.
Yeah.
Because like
I think
people
part
saw.
of it's also like fantasy movies also like influence what things do get developed. Like if Star Trek hadn't made like display screens seem so cool, would we have pursued
That's a good
like
point,
iPhones
yeah.
and stuff as much as we did?
So I think
like voice command things.
Like a Cyberman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that literature and how it's perceived in media does influence how we evolve as people and with our technology.
Yeah.
It inspires people, and so if they're like, if you see something and you're like, wow, that's really cool, I want actually that to be a thing, and you're smart enough to do it, and like that's your passion, like.
I mean, there are people on YouTube trying to make actual lightsabers.
Yeah.
And they're semi-successful.
Sounds slightly dangerous.
It is extremely dangerous, but they're semi-successful. Some people are making successful jetpacks.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, I have seen those.
Like actual working jetpacks. Somebody made an actual hover bike with using these humongous fans. Like, just like two humongous fans, and they have some complex metal keeping them together, and a seat, and it's actually floats and moves. Like, people see this stuff in stories, and they want to make it a reality, and that's what defines our future. So, I guess there's not really any way of knowing what our future is going to be until we see what stories come our way, which would be a lot easier if stories were more original than they are right now. Because right now we are in the age of sequels and remakes, and it bugs me so much.
Yeah.
I feel like that can't last forever because, like, if you even look back at Disney's history, they had such a weird in between the Renaissance movies. So the Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, basically the thing that caused Disney to boom. Before that, like, they had Snow White and then Cinderella and then Sleeping Beauty, and then they were starting to like not be super successful, and they had a really bad couple of flop movies. And
sequels.
Yeah. Basically, then they had the Renaissance movies, and they kind of recovered it, and I think that's just, they're running low on, something's happening that they're going, we need to bring back whatever the Renaissance was. How do we do that? Why don't we just make the Renaissance movies? And it's like, no.
So they're just, like, I wouldn't mind if they remade them and gave them a new spin or improved upon their plot, because you've had like 20 plus years to think about what could make these movies better, so wouldn't it be easy to just, you know, make a new movie and just make it better? But no.
No, not at all. Instead, they're going to live action remake Robin Hood.
Wait. As in the
animated Robin Hood, there's a live action remake in the works.
Time out. Are you talking about as in
The furry Robin
Oh
Hood.
no. No, that's not going to be live action. When you live action something like that, you get what happened with Lion King, and it's all completely CG animated.
No, except here's the thing. This is where it's funny. It's Robin Hood that they're making a live action of. There's like five Robin Hood movies.
I know. What are they doing? Ridiculous.
The reason that it's so good is because it's so different from the other Robin Hood movies.
All right, I think we've covered enough ground. So I appreciate you guys helping me record this.
Yeah, of course.
Here's hoping that it comes out well.